So we're going to demonstrate how to do pattern. So one of the first things that you want to do is go to Photoshop, and within Photoshop what you're going to do is you're going to go to File, New, and within the new window you're going to title this, and I'm going to title it Pattern, and you can put your name on it if you like. Then you want to make sure that the width is 720, the height is 480, resolution should be about 300, background transparent, and everything else you can leave exactly as it is. Click OK, and then if the window shows up small like this, there's a couple things you can do. You can go to the magnifying glass here and you can click on it, and as long as it is selected in the plus, which is right here, this is the minus will make it smaller, the plus will make it bigger. You can also do this on your keyboard doing command plus or command minus. So I'm gonna, and you can, if you happen to have a pad, you can scroll, which is what I'm doing right now, but you won't be able to do that with a mouse. Okay, or you might be able to, but all right, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to choose a background, and I'm going to paint bucket my background. The next thing I'm going to do is do a new layer, because everything you do needs to be on a separate layer. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I would actually start naming these. So what you want to do is click on here, and I'm going to say background, because you're going to want to have the names once you go into Premiere and start animating. And this will be, I'll say shape 1. Now you want to create your own shapes. Now there's a couple ways you can do it, and it's very easy to repeat a shape. You can make your shape by using one of the marquee tools, so you can either do a square, and then from the square what you can do is paint bucket the square with a color of your choice, which can be whatever color you choose. So I will show you an example of that right now. So you can make a square like I've just done, and then click color over here, and let's say I want to do this one in a darker green. Then I would go to the paint bucket and paint bucket, making sure that it is on a separate layer. So this is one way that I can choose a repetitive pattern. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deselect by, I can either do Command D or I can go up to Select, do deselect here, and if you look over here it tells you the keyboard shortcut. So I'm going to deselect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this where I want it. So I'm going to use the Move tool, and making sure that your Show Transform tools are selected, because that way you can have the little handles here so you can move things around. So I'm going to move this to a corner. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat this shape by taking the shape, dragging it down here to the new layer tool, which is like a little create new layer thing. And then I'm going to use my arrow keys on my keyboard to move this shape over. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it completely down, and I want a little bit of an overlap, so I'm going to just have it overlap a little bit because I want to create a pattern with this. That looks pretty good. Now if you want it to be perfect, you can use guides, and I'm going to show you about guides. So guides, you would go into View and New Guide. I want this to be vertical, so this is a guide right here. Okay, so I'm going to move this over here, and I'm going to connect it there. And another easy way to do guides is you don't really have to go up to the view menu. You can just go and grab one here. If you see, you just grab right here and you go down here. Now this may or may not be effective. I don't know. I'm going to see. So this is, I'm going to call this shape 2. So I'm going to get rid of the copy, just call it shape 2. And then I'm going to take shape 2, I'm going to do that, make another copy of it, and I'm going to call this shape 3. And I'm going to move shape 3 by making sure I'm on the move tool, and I have to make sure that I have it selected, which I do now. I'm going to move it down again, and again just stopping short, and then I'm going to move it over here. Which looks about the same size. Let's see if it is. I think it's pretty close. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of shape 3, and this is going to be shape 4. And same thing, this time instead of, well, the reason I'm using the arrow keys is because it keeps it in a straight line. And another thing you can do if you don't want to use the arrow keys, if it's just taking too long for you, if you hold down the shift when you move your element, it will keep it, like I'm trying to move it up and down, it won't move up and down. It will move only across the way that you want it. The other thing that you can do is something you learned in the Mr. Melonhead, which is holding down the Option command and waiting for the cursor to change to the black and the white, and then making another one, and that will create a new shape. And you can do it that way as well. So I'm going to do a couple of those, and you can see it's actually making a new layer, and it's even naming it for you, although it isn't naming it correctly. So you're going to have to go in here and you're going to have to go in here and name your layer correctly. So this is shape 5, and then this one will be shape 6. And you want to do this before it gets too crazy with all of these. And shape 6 looks like it needs to move over a little bit. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of shape 6, and I'm going to move this up here and over. So I want to line it up with this one, which, as you can see, it kind of automatically did some little lineups, if you can see that, and I'm going to line it up with that one. So I'm going to create even more of a pattern by doing this. Now I'm going to take my shape 6, turn it into a shape 7, although this is shape 7, so we're actually on 8, and you can see that's why you want to name them, because it's really easy to get lost in all of these. So this is going to be shape 8. So I'm going to move shape 8, whoops, I'm going to move shape 8 down and over, and that one lines up beautifully. So I'm lining up with these two, that one, and this one, if that makes sense. Then I'm going to do a shape 9. So I'm going to call it shape 9 over here. Shape 9. And I'm going to move this, and again I'm going to line it up with all of them. So you have you're basically creating a pattern that through repetition you're repeating the shapes, and then you're also repeating the placement of the shapes, right? So what I would do is I would probably fill most of this up, and then I'm going to do a little bit of a cheat here, and I'll show you how to do that. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take shapes 1 through 9, I'm going to highlight them, I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to click on new group from layers, and I'm going to call this shapes 1 through 9. And basically what that did was it just put all those shapes into a folder. And the reason I did that is now what I want to do is take this folder and I want to make a copy of it. So now I have doubled those shapes, and I'm going to take the shapes and now I'm going to create more of a pattern with all of the shapes that I have. Right? Now this is obviously going to work a little bit better if I had this part filled in, because then I would fill it all in, and there's a little bit of a there's some problems with how I'm doing this, that it's not really creating the perfect pattern that I'm looking for. So I think I'll just put it over here, and that way I have a double pattern, so that will work. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my definition and my title in here, which you can do it in Photoshop or you can do it in Premiere. I'm going to do it in Photoshop. So as soon as you click on the type tool, it's automatically going to create its own layer. So as you notice, it pops up with a layer. So I'm going to call this pattern. Now, oops, didn't spell pattern right. Now I don't want it the same color as this, so the way that you change the text color is up here, not over here. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to pick a color that is a little bit on the opposite spectrum, or a complementary color. So that is what I'm going to do. It would be a red, but I'm choosing kind of a reddish orange. I want to make it a little bit lighter, just to make it pop a little bit. Okay, and then I want to make it a little bit bigger, so this is how you make that bigger. And then I'm going to move this over here. So already I have kind of a little graphic designy feel to it, even though it's not in perfect proportion. And I have everything on separate layers, which is really nice. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the definition of pattern. And for me to do that, I'm going to go over here and see what the definition is that I have here, which is repetition of an element of art. So first I'm going to lower make the font a little bit smaller. So repetition of, I'm going to just say what it is, the element of shape. Repetition of the element of shape. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, obviously it did not make this, well, it made it a little bit smaller, but it's not small enough. And I think might change the font in this because I want it to be a little bit different. I think that will work. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. Now, if I want to add something to this, which I think I'm going to add something to it, I'm going to click off of the type tool, and I think I want to add a circle. So this time, instead of using the marquee tool, I'm going to use the shape tool, which is down here, right? And if you click on the shape tool, you have all different types of shapes, including lines, polygons, ellipses, and then you also have the custom shape tool, which is up here. Now I don't want you to use this custom shape tool more than once in this, but you can use it. You can use it to create your pattern as long as you also create your own shape. So I think what I'm going to use is, I'll use this eyedrop. So I click on it, and then you click and drag, and you can see you can kind of make it whatever you want. I want it to be sort of on the small side, but I don't want it to be that color. So I'm going to click on this. Basically what you do is you click on the shape, because shapes are a little bit different than other elements that you use in Photoshop. And I think with this I'm going to make it sort of a muted yellow. Okay, so then I have this, and I want to put this little drop on top of my element there. Now I'm only going to do one of those because I think I'm going to repeat it in Premiere. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. So I'm going to do a save as. This is really important. When you do save as, you have to be really mindful that you don't click anything up here. This is already selected. You don't want to click you don't want to do this. If you do that, for some reason it corrupts everything. So I'm going to cancel that because I don't want to corrupt anything. And I'm going to do my save as again. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I'm on the desktop, and I'm going to do new folder, and I'm going to call this pattern principle. And I'm going to say OK, and then I'm going to, I see it there, I'm going to say save, and I'm going to save this, just say OK. And so now I'm done with the Photoshop part of it. Now I'm going to go down here, and I do not see Premiere down here anywhere. So what that means, and that could happen to you, if that does happen to you, go to Launchpad, look for Premiere, which is right here, and if you want it to be down here, you basically just drag it from here and drop it down here into your dock. Now I'm going to click on Premiere and open it up. So this is your basic Premiere lesson. Some of you, this is repeating last year, and some of you, this is brand spanking new. I'm going to stop this recording here because I'm going to do a second recording for the Premiere part.